And it's time now for Sound Off. Interesting people saying interesting things. And there may, in the long run, not wind up being anything more interesting said in the last few weeks or months than what Deion Sanders said over the weekend. He was talking about the two players that he has as draft prospects for next year, his son, Shedeur Sanders, and the star player, Travis Hunter. And listen to how he, Deion, anticipates approaching their draft process.
Where do you predict Shedeur and Travis going in the draft?
Top 4.
That's pretty beautiful.
Anywhere from 1 through 4. One of them is going to be 1. The latter one would not go behind 4. Now, all this is subjective because I know where I want them to go. So there's certain cities that ain't gonna happen. It's gonna
Okay,
be a
you
big
on
man.
point.
It's gonna be it's gonna be an Eli.
Okay. And Dan Graziano joins us here. He's down at the owners' meetings as well. And you see Hawk and you see Robert Griffin. And RG3, there's been a lot of this kind of conversation. I know people made a big deal about you suggesting that Caleb Williams could consider something like that in Chicago. I believe we are looking at a different time in sports now. Athletes have different expectations. So this whole idea of, oh, well, you just tell me where I'll go play and make my life and I have no control over the entire situation. I think those days are coming to an end. And so I think Deion Sanders signaling that is a fascinating development. What are your thoughts, RG3?
Yeah, I mean, the power shift is coming, so everyone needs to buckle up. All these college coaches have been running to the NFL because they're upset that the college players have a little bit more power and a little bit more say. Well, guess what? Those same kids that they're running away from are the ones that are going to be coming up the ranks and coming into the NFL in the next few years. So Deion saying that either Shedeur or Travis Hunter are going to pull an Eli doesn't surprise me at all. Look at what's happened this year. Caleb Williams goes to the combine, doesn't do anything except for meetings, doesn't even let the medical teams go out there and look at him because he says they don't need to. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't do his pro day, doesn't do the combine, doesn't run a 40 because they don't need to. In today's age with the athletes and their mindset, they are empowered. They know that they can control their own narratives. They know that they can be a part of the media while they're still playing. So if the players that are coming up are saying these things and feel this type of way, you're going to see more of them pull an Eli and say, I understand that playing in the NFL is a privilege, but that privilege is earned through my pay or through my play. And the players right now understand that they don't have to do the status quo and they don't have to sit here and answer to whatever they're told to do anymore, because without the players, all of these sports leagues are nothing. This is the player empowerment age, and you're seeing it come into the NFL.
That's exactly right. I mean, there's some of that, and look, not all the players will have the authority or the ability or the power to do it. But those who do might say, oh, you mean I don't have to sit in a room and allow all these people I don't know to ask me insultingly personal questions about my family and all sorts of other things just because there's no other choice here? I think the day and age of that should have ended a long time ago, and it's ending now. Hawk, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm okay with all of that. I'm okay with not doing the pro days. I'm okay with not doing the interviews. I'm even okay with not doing the physicals because you have an eye and you're a scout. Use your eye, make your decision, and we'll figure it out from there. But as someone who has championed athlete empowerment my entire career, like from the media, from a playing perspective, what I always warn athletes of, there is a thin line between athlete empowerment and athlete entitlement. And this is grossly flirting with that thin line, because the thing that you're not factoring in is a quarterback. Yes, you have the abilities to be successful in the NFL. There are so many other variables and factors outside of your control. One of the most important being, how do you motivate the team that is with you? The guys in the huddle, where they look to you as someone with confidence who they trust can make the play, because it starts there. If I want a quarterback on my team, I want a quarterback who says wherever my 2 feet are planted, we'll compete. It won't matter whether it's in Chicago, Washington, Jacksonville, Cleveland, LA, you name it. Because you won the lottery of being in position to get graced with my services, congratulations, we're competing for a Super Bowl. And this whole try to fix and pick where your team is when every other player doesn't have that luxury, I'm telling you, it's going to raise eyebrows, not only from a public perspective, to the guys that are also in your locker room, no matter where you end up.
An interesting way to look at it. Graziano, how about it? You're down there. You're with all these coaches now and all the rest of it. What's your perspective on this?
Well, I think a couple things in terms of what Deion Sanders is talking about. One, I mean, Deion, since we've known him, has always, sort of talked big, right? Like he expects big things from himself. He expects big things from the people who play for him. And obviously, I think he's talking about a situation where the year has gone very well for Colorado, and those two players are top 4 picks in the draft. And if that happens, then sure, they'll have that level of. They could conceivably, if they want to, have that level of power and control over their situation. But I think you're talking about a very small number of people, maybe not even one per year, that are going to be able to exercise this kind of power that we're talking about. Caleb Williams probably could if he wanted to. And who knows, maybe at some point he will. We haven't heard anything to indicate that is his plan. But, yeah, in terms of the Colorado guys that Deion is talking about, if they have the year that he's expecting them to, then they could be in that situation. I just think it's going to be, especially now, I think it's going to be very difficult for representative numbers of college players to exercise that kind of leverage coming out into the draft, as long as there's a draft. Now, if they can organize and get rid of the draft, then all bets are off. But I think we're a long way from that.
No. So again, an Eli is the idea of a player forcing his way through whatever leverage he has out of not being drafted or not playing at a place that he doesn't want to be. Eli Manning famously did it with San Diego. John Elway famously did it with Baltimore generations ago. It's rare, but it happens. And RG3, I know that you believe, as one who was sort of in this situation at one point in your life, a super high draft pick, Heisman winner, all that kind of stuff. Do you think Deion is talking about what the future of pro football is going to look like?
100%, Greeny. It is what the future is going to be. The power shift is happening. And I got to say, when I was coming out, we went to we had these meetings with NFL veterans, and they talked to us about how playing in the NFL is a privilege. And it's not a right. It's not something that you deserve. It's something that you're blessed with. And I don't disagree with that. But for a certain select few guys at the top of the draft, they can start exercising that power that has a lot of college coaches running from the college ranks to the NFL. You look at Marvin Harrison Jr., who didn't do the combine, who didn't do pro day, didn't run a 40. And you look at Caleb Williams, who actually went to the combine and basically did nothing except for the meetings. Players are starting to understand their true value. They are now understanding that they can control their narratives and be in the media at the same time as they play. So as this continues to grow and develop, and all these kids from college who are a part of this NIL age of player empowerment come to the NFL, a select few are going to start saying, I don't want to play in this city. I don't want to be here for whatever reason. And maybe it's too hot. Maybe it's too cold. Maybe the organization's not great. But what Deion Sanders is talking about is exactly what is coming down the pipeline. And I think the coaches and organizations have to realize that players now know without them, the league is nothing. Imagine the NFL without Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Not as many people would watch. So get ready.
I think that is, for any number of reasons, a really important and interesting point. I wanted to get Jay Will in on this as well, because this era of collegiate sports is something that you're very connected to with your coverage of our college basketball and everything else. What do you think of what Deion just said, Jay?
Well, Deion has a platform that is different than anybody else in all of sports, right? So Deion Sanders is a power broker, and I think you'll see a lot more power brokers in the game of college sports. And the reality is, not everybody will be able to do this. But Bo Jackson did this already, guys, and this is what NIL does, right? Bo Jackson, 1986, said, okay, Bucks, you want to draft me? If you draft me, I'll play baseball. They drafted him. He played baseball. So now the power that these players have, like you said, right? It's like, okay, you want to draft me? Oh, fine. I'm not going to come in the draft. I'll just go back to school and make $2.5 million a year. I'll sit in my penthouse. I have other ways of earning. There's not the same deprivation of I need to make money like there was 10 years ago because of NIL. It changes everything.
Yeah, I think he's right. Now, Hawk, you brought up a concern with regard to all of this that I think is a legitimate one.
Yeah. I think it's about business, and exactly to your point, Jay Will, it is about leverage. Bo Jackson had leverage of another sport. Kyler Murray had leverage of 2 sports being a first-round pick, and we had this same conversation when he was coming out. And if you have the leverage of, I'll just go back to school another year, the question becomes, in those scenarios where you don't have leverage on the other side, it's a thin line between athlete empowerment and athlete entitlement, because what are you going to do? Do you really feel like you have the power to undo a whole system for yourself? And not only that, are you making it harder on yourself as you go into locker rooms to galvanize the people who are actually in there that are also dictating and a part of your success or lack thereof? So yes, we are in the age of athlete empowerment. It's an incredible and wonderful thing, something that I've benefited from and other people on this panel have benefited from and championed. But you have to do your part. That does not mean resisting uncomfort like Mike Tomlin talks about. And I think this narrative, especially in NIL, as it permeates through all the sports, that you don't have to do anything you're uncomfortable with, or you can change all the factors to only suit you, is a bad message to send to athletes, and it will only get worse if it continues on that trend.
Jay?
AJ, I just want to say one thing, because I do agree with you. It's not all strokes for all folks, but let's not act like this hasn't been going on all the time. Like when I was in college, or when my friends are in college, or watching, we always knew what players were taking money from agents, what players actually had leverage in the locker room, what players were already playing that game. So it's something that I think, yeah, it could affect the locker room, but the locker rooms have already known these things have been going on for a while. Like, you know, guys that roll around with extra cash in their pocket. You know, guys that actually have access to the clubs and how to get bottles. You know, guys that have access to the nice cars. Like, this game has been going on for a while. It's not new.
Give me something.